Pricing shouldn't be a measuring contest. Welcome to Talking Experience Analytics with a decent beer in a shed. And this is Drifter, an awesome collab between Manchester's Track and Badlands Brewing from Canada. Oh, what a boot that, eh? Now then, too often we treat pricing as a measuring contest, as a muscular thing. If we're the ones to drop 6,000 SKUs by 20 cents and on average, we're the big guys on the block. It's nonsense for a number of reasons. First up, your customers aren't as price sensitive as you think they are. And what I mean by that isn't a simple, oh no, they know if we can be expensive if we want, we can be cheap if we want. No, not that at all. Customers aren't sensitive to change in price as much as you think they are. They have a fixed friction perception of pricing in your business. So again, in grocery, if you are habitually feeling expensive, poor at projecting value, the customer has a sense memory that you are expensive. If you're habitually very cheap and you're great at shouting about it, you make it very clear, the customer has a sense memory, a friction sense memory that you're low cost. But there are retailers that are great at creating anchored gaps between one price and another that makes their value projection look so good that the customer has a false sense of the real pricing in that business. And that's the thing. We in the industry, we know everybody's prices. So we're triggered by that. Oh, somebody else has done a better deal with the tomato growers of, I don't know where tomatoes grow, it's probably California where everything else grows. Somebody's done a great Idaho potato deal and those guys are giving that, so they're offering that product less than I can offer it at. I've got to do something about it. Get onto my suppliers, beat everybody down, release 5,000 reductions on SKUs across the business. And then you're disappointed when very little happens to revenue. And maybe you do some perception research, and that perception research also tells you nobody's really noticed. And that's the shock, that it's not about your absolute price, it's about the construction you create around pricing. And you've got to get out of your head that your knowledge of pricing in the industry is what should lead, and that bullying into the room with thousands of cuts and advertising that is going to be enough, because it's not. Customers just do not notice it in the short term. It takes a long time to bed in. There's also the fact that with an everyday low pricing strategy, invest in that for decades as Walmart have, and you get to a point where that is the sense memory of Walmart. But not everybody can do that. Not everybody has the time for that. Not everybody has the patience for decades of establishing that. And that's why promotions drive a stronger sense of value than absolute price does. You want a great example? Let's move out of grocery for a second and look at JCPenney. When JCPenney switched from promotions to EDLP, sales plummeted 25%. Now that's real numbers, real world. On the one hand, JCPenney's leadership felt they were offering great value. They were beating the market. They were offering a better deal than everybody else. But they weren't offering a deal. They were offering a number. Numbers are meaningless unless they're anchored by another number that means we can comparatively understand what we've got in front of us. And then there's Publix. I've been in the room with senior grocery executives when they've written off Publix as a competitor by saying, who wants to pay more for their grocery? It doesn't make sense. As if Publix weren't gaining market share hand over fist. As if Publix weren't opening hundreds of new stores. As if Publix wasn't busting out of Florida into a much bigger footprint. What does Publix do that makes its value perception and its projection of savings so strong, despite actually being expensive? It's the buy one, get one mechanic that Publix essentially dominates. Because what happens psychologically with that mechanic is that every customer, when they load their car in the parking lot, pops the boot, the trunk, the hood, whatever it's called, pops the back bit, They load their groceries in, and as they're doing it, they're telling themselves, I beat the system today, I got free stuff. I got free things. Publix, I'm the one who's managed to best them. Because that customer knows that Publix is generally more expensive than others, but they think the other guy is paying those prices, not them. The other guy is the sucker that doesn't know how to defeat the system, doesn't know how to beat Publix at their own game. Publix knows. It's Publix's strategy, and it's brilliant. It's fabulous. It's so psychologically powerful. But I told you that story because it just tells you so much about the psychology of pricing. Being absolute lowest. Yeah, if you've got 20 years to establish that, good. If you haven't, panicking and banging discounts off of thousands of SKUs will do nothing. Unless you also have the discipline to properly anchor every single one of those savings and make every single one of those a deal. Something that tells the customer that coming to you was a good choice because they're beating the system. That's what pricing is. It is not a measuring contest. Although this measures up.